The worst part wasn't the joke, it was how practiced it sounded. My father stood at the head of the table like he always does. Glass raised, shoulders back, voice warm in that fake Sunday way. 14 guests, real estate people, church people, the kind who care about zip codes. I could smell rosemary from the turkey and the faint burn of candles melting too fast. One daughter is a board-certified dermatologist, he said, smiling at my sister. The other, well, she helps people clean up after themselves. Soft laughter, not loud, not cruel, just easy. Like everyone already knew their lines. My name is Madeline Cross and I am 32 years old. I didn't stand up. I didn't correct him. I've had practice. My daughter Ava was sitting next to me, legs swinging under the chair. She leaned close, her breath warm against my arm. "Mom," she whispered, "are you the help?" That's when something inside me shifted, not exploded, just moved. I squeezed her hand. "No," I said quietly. "I'm not." Across the table. Natalie looked at her wine. She always does that when he performs. My mother. Elaine. Smiled like this was harmless. Like it was branding. Honestly, I've let him do this for years. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself it was strategic. Keep the peace. Keep the cottage. Keep access to childcare. I swear, you start negotiating with your own dignity in tiny pieces. It feels smart at the time. My father took another sip. Madeline's work is practical, he added, and a few people chuckled again. Practical. I run Blue Ridge Estate Management, 16 employees, 22 properties across western Loudown, about $1.9 million in annual revenue. I oversee vendor contracts bigger than the mortgage on this house, and he calls me practical. James Porterfield was sitting 3 seats down. My client, my biggest one. He hadn't laughed. He was studying me, like he was trying to place something under the table. Ava's fingers tightened around mine. I felt the old reflex kick in, shrink, smile, let him finish. That reflex kept a roof over my head for 5 years. But the thing is, that roof isn't mine. Not really. 5 years ago, I came back here with 2 suitcases and a toddler on my hip. That's where this started. 5 years ago, I stood on my parents' porch with 2 suitcases and a diaper bag sawing into my shoulder. Ava was 2. She kept twisting around in my arms, scanning the driveway like he might pull in any second. "Where, Daddy?" she asked, again and again, like the right number of times would summon him. I didn't have an answer that didn't make me sound stupid, or pathetic, or both. He left on a Tuesday, emptied our checking account on Wednesday, filed for divorce from his mother's address on Thursday. By Friday, I was driving west with $900 left and a kid who cried until her face went blotchy and hot. Robert opened the door. No hug, no come in. He looked past me at the car like he was checking for damage. How long, he asked. I don't know. That's not reassuring. I didn't come for reassurance. He stepped aside like he was letting in a delivery. The cottage is available. Temporary. Temporary. Like I was a guest who overstayed a dinner party. Elaine appeared behind him, arms folded tight. "You could have made better choices. Maddie." I laughed, but it came out wrong. Thin, sharp. I chose my husband. Her mouth pinched, and he chose to leave. Ava buried her face in my neck and whimpered. My arms were shaking from holding her and from not crying. Natalie called later that night, voice soft like a bandage. "I'm so sorry," she said. "Dad's just, you know how he is." "Yeah," I said. "I know." The cottage smelled like dust and old wood and something damp hiding in the walls. 420 square feet. The shower ran cold after 4 minutes, like it had rules and I didn't qualify. I told myself it was strategic. Save money. Rebuild. Don't fight yet. Just get stable. Just breathe. I started cleaning houses the next week, $18 an hour. Cash sometimes. I'd leave Ava with a neighbor and scrub marble floors in homes bigger than my parents' house. Some days my hands smelled like bleach even after I washed them twice. That same month, Natalie finished her fellowship. My parents hosted a dinner, 24 guests, real estate people, church people, everyone polished. I showed up late because I was still at a client's place in Middleburg. A pipe burst under a sink and the homeowner stood there panicking while I mopped water into towels like it was my fault the house had plumbing. When I walked in, Robert clinked his glass. "Sorry she's late," he said, nodding toward me like I was staff arriving late to my shift. "She's out working." A man across the table smiled. What field? Robert didn't blink. Domestic support. People laughed. Not loud. Just easy. Like it was a harmless label. "I run my own schedule," I said. My voice sounded small even to me. Robert tilted his head. "You run a mop." That was the first time I almost said something sharp enough to cut. Later, in the kitchen, I found Elaine drying plates like she had all night in the world. "You could defend me," I said. She didn't look up. "You could give him something to defend. I pay my own bills. You live on his land." There it was. The rule, the leash. Natalie slipped in behind me, whispering like we were in church. "Don't escalate. It won't help." "I'm not escalating," I said. "I'm existing." The next morning, Robert knocked on the cottage door like a landlord who hated his tenants. "I'll need you to contribute utilities," he said. "I make less than $40,000 a year. Then work more." I stared at him. "You refinanced the house to send Natalie to medical school. That was an investment. And I'm not—" He didn't answer. He never answered when the question cornered him. That was the year I learned something ugly in this family. Worth equals optics, and optics equals control. I swallowed it for Ava, for stability, for the lie that it would only be for a little while. And I stayed. You don't notice you're second place until someone keeps announcing the scores. Natalie was always brilliant. I was independent. That word sounds kind until you hear what it replaces. Senior year. Robert sat at the kitchen table with a stack of glossy brochures spread out like blueprints. "Natalie's applying to Georgetown, Duke, Johns Hopkins," he said. Top-tier programs. I was standing there holding my own acceptance letter. "I got into Virginia Tech," I said. He didn't look up. "And how do you intend to pay for that? I'll work." He folded one brochure carefully. "Natalie has focus. You chase things. I graduated with a 3.8. You don't have her discipline." Natalie was leaning in the doorway. She looked embarrassed. Not for me. For him. Later that night, she knocked on my door. "I didn't ask him to compare us," she said. "I know. He thinks he's motivating you. It doesn't feel like motivation." She hesitated. "I can't fight him on everything. I didn't ask you to. But part of me had. I just didn't know how to say it without sounding needy." When Natalie got into medical school, Robert refinanced the house. $200,000 pulled out without a blink. At dinner, he lifted his glass. "This is what an investment looks like," I said. "I'm graduating with honors next month." He actually paused, like I'd interrupted the script. "Oh, right. That's good. Good. Not proud. Not impressive. Just good." No one came to my ceremony. Natalie had a research presentation. Robert had a Rotary luncheon. Elaine told me she'd mail flowers. I walked across that stage and clapped for myself in my head. It sounds pathetic, but sometimes you have to be your own audience. Years later, after I moved back with Ava, Natalie came over with a bottle of wine. She sat at the tiny kitchen table in the cottage and stared at the peeling edge of the counter. "You don't have to prove anything," she said. "I'm not trying to." "You are," she said quietly. "You always have." "Dad just values impact," she added. "Impact like debt I asked." She gave a tired laugh. "My loans are $240,000, and that's after the refinance." "Does he know no?" "Why not?" "Because if it wasn't worth it, then what was all that pressure for?" That was the first time I saw it. Natalie wasn't free. She was curated, polished, positioned. Elaine once told me, "Your sister makes us proud, and I don't." She chose her words carefully. "You make us hopeful." Hopeful. Like I was a project still under review. I spent years trying to earn a promotion in a system no one admitted existed. The shift didn't come from courage. It came from exhaustion. I was at a property in Upperville, standing in a kitchen bigger than my entire cottage, listening to a homeowner argue with a landscaper over the phone. "I told them the hedges need trimming every 2 weeks," she snapped. "Why am I managing this myself?" I took the phone. "Ma'am, I can coordinate vendors directly. One point of contact." She paused. "Do you do that?" "Not officially." Silence. "Maybe you should." That was it. No epiphany. Just irritation meeting opportunity. I went home and opened my laptop at midnight. Ava asleep on the couch, cartoons flickering blue across the walls. I registered Blue Ridge Estate Management, LLC, $45 filing fee. I typed it 3 times before hitting submit because I thought maybe I was being delusional. The next week I pitched 3 homeowners. "I don't just clean," I said. "I oversee." "What's the difference?" one man asked. "Liability." I said, "Accountability. If something breaks, I own the fix." 2 signed. 1 laughed. "Robert found out from a neighbor." "So now you're an entrepreneur," he said, leaning against the cottage door. "Yes." "With what capital time?" He smirked. "That's not capital. I didn't ask you to invest." I wouldn't. That part didn't even sting. I expected it. Kate Monroe called me a month later. I hadn't spoken to her in years. She's my father's sister, divorced, banished. "I hear you're building something," she said. "I'm trying. Trying is expensive." We met at a coffee shop off Route 50. She didn't waste time. "I'll put in $25,000. Equity. Not a loan." I stared at her. "Why? Because your father underestimates you." "That's not new." She leaned forward. "He also plans long games. You should too." "I don't want revenge." "Good. Revenge is short-term. Control is long-term." I didn't tell Robert. I hired 2 part-time coordinators instead. I started charging structured annual contracts instead of hourly. One night, Natalie called. "Dad says you're playing business," she said carefully. "I'm not playing. Just be careful." I am. You ever build something quietly because you're not ready to defend it? Yet I did, and I didn't realize it was already bigger than their narrative. By year 4, I wasn't scrambling anymore. I was scheduling 22 estates, 16 full-time employees, contracts ranging from $95,000 to $160,000 annually, gross revenue just under $1.9 million. I still slept in a cottage that wasn't mine. James Porterfield came in during year 3. Big developer, calm voice, clean handshake. "I need someone reliable," he said the first time we met in his office. "Not flashy, reliable." "I'm not flashy," I told him. "Good." We started with 3 properties, then 5. Then he added 2 more without a pitch. "You handle problems before I hear about them." He said once over a call, "That's the point. You don't oversell." I don't need to. Those weekly calls became routine. Tuesdays at 9, I'd sit at the tiny desk in the cottage while Ava ate cereal behind me. Robert walked in once during a call. "Who's that?" he asked after I hung up. "A client. For cleaning. For management." He shook his head. "You're still scrubbing floors." "Maddie, I haven't scrubbed a floor in months. That's not how people see it." That line stuck. At Sunday dinner, Elaine asked, "How's your little company?" "It's not little." Natalie glanced up. "How many employees?" 16. Robert laughed. "Part-time help isn't staff. They're full-time. With benefits." "Yes." Silence. He didn't expect that. Natalie spoke carefully. "That's impressive." Robert cut her off. "Revenue isn't prestige. It pays bills," I said. "And image pays dividends." I swear, he talks like that even when nobody's listening. Later that night, Natalie texted me. "He's threatened. He doesn't look threatened. He doesn't have to. Porterfield once told me, "You underplay your scale." I grew up doing that, I said before I could stop myself. He didn't laugh. You ever build something solid and still feel like you need permission to say it out loud? I did. And that hesitation was about to cost me. The envelope came certified, thick paper, signature required. That alone told me this wasn't a father-daughter conversation. Robert didn't step inside the cottage. He held it out like a receipt. "This is procedural," he said. "Don't dramatize it." I opened it on the porch. Notice to quit. 90 days. I've lived here 5 years. I said. "You've stayed here 5 years," he corrected. "You told me it was temporary." It was. "So, what changed? I'm under contract to sell the parcel." "How much?" $1.28 million. He said it evenly. "Clean? Practiced? Condition I asked. Closing requires vacant possession." There it was. "You told the buyer the cottage is empty." I told him it will be. That's not what he asked. It's what he needs. Ava's cartoon music drifted through the thin walls. Bright, loud, completely unaware. "I get mail here." I said. "I've paid utilities. I qualify as a tenant at will." "You're not a tenant," he replied. "You're my daughter." That's worse. His jaw tightened. "You're doing well. You can relocate. You're asking me to cure your contract. I'm asking you not to obstruct it." That word stayed with me. Obstruct. Elaine called that evening. "Don't escalate this," she said. "He sent legal notice. He needs liquidity." "For what? That's not your concern." "It is, if my housing solves it." Silence. Then, quietly, he took a bridge loan. How much? $400,000, secured by the land. Yes. So that was the clock. 90 days wasn't about me. It was about maturity dates. The next morning, I called Daniel Harper, the attorney Kate had mentioned months ago. "You have tenant at will status," he said after reviewing the notice. "That means he can't just remove you without filing for unlawful detainer. That's the formal court eviction process. How long would that take? Months? Possibly longer. And if I stay? If the contract states the property is vacant, and it isn't, that's a disclosure issue." I stared at the letter. "The buyer is James Porterfield," I said. Pause. "The developer." "Yes. The one you manage properties for." "Yes." "That complicates things," Daniel said carefully. "If occupancy wasn't disclosed, he could argue material misrepresentation, meaning Robert didn't just need me gone. He needed me gone quietly." Later that week, he called me into his study. "I don't want this getting adversarial," he said. "You started it with certified mail. I needed documentation. The contract requires proof of possession status. So you manufactured it." He leaned forward. "The bridge loan matures in 90 days. If closing doesn't happen, I'm exposed. You assumed I'd leave. I assumed cooperation. There it is." He studied me like he was recalculating. "Don't mistake independence for immunity," he said, "and don't mistake ownership for control." I replied, "For the first time, this wasn't about embarrassment. It wasn't about pride. It was numbers, deadlines, collateral, and I was the line item he expected to adjust itself. I found out about Thanksgiving from Elaine, not Robert. "James Porterfield is joining us this year," she said over the phone. Too casual. "It's important. For what I asked. For optics. Optics for the land sale." She paused. "You don't need to bring that up. So he doesn't know I live here. He knows what's relevant. I am relevant. You're emotional." I almost laughed. "You're strategic." Later that night, Robert came to the cottage. "James needs reassurance," he said. "Strong family presence. Stability." "You mean performance?" "I mean credibility." "You told him the cottage is vacant. It will be not in 5 days." He stepped closer. "Don't sabotage this. I didn't start this. You don't understand scale. I understand contracts." That landed. He didn't like when I spoke that language. The next morning, I had my weekly call with Porterfield. "You'll be at Cross Thanksgiving?" I asked carefully. "Yes." "Your father insisted. Big night, potentially." "You comfortable with the timeline?" For closing, yes. He sounded steady, calm, unaware. After the call, Natalie texted, "Dad's stressed. He should be. Please don't blow this up." "He already did. You could just move." "Why should I?" "Because you can." There it was. She still thought capacity equals obligation. Kate called that afternoon. "I hear he invited Porterfield." She said, "Yes. You going to tell the truth I don't know. Truth has timing." "I'm tired of timing," she laughed softly. "Then stop protecting him." That night, I stood in the cottage kitchen, staring at the notice to quit on the counter. Ava was drawing at the table, humming. "Mom," she said, "are we moving?" "Not yet." "You ever feel two versions of your life about to collide in one room?" I did, and the room was already set. Thanksgiving smelled like butter and overcooked sage. The heat was turned up too high, like the house was trying to prove something. Elaine handed me an apron before the first guest arrived. "Stay in the kitchen," she said. "Help serve. Let your father handle the room." Handle what I asked. Perception. Of course. James Porterfield arrived exactly on time. Navy blazer, calm handshake. He greeted Robert like this was a negotiation dinner. "Robert, thank you for including me. We believe in transparency and strong family structure," Robert said loudly enough for 3 tables to hear. I almost smiled at that word. Transparency. Dinner settled into noise. 14 people. Silverware. Polite laughter. Robert stood once plates were half cleared. "I'm grateful this year," he began. "For legacy. For wise investments. For daughters who reflect the strength of this family." He turned to Natalie. "Dr. Natalie Bennett. Board certified. A return on commitment." Light applause. Predictable. Then he turned to me. "And Madeline," he said, smiling thinly. "Madeline keeps things tidy. One daughter practices medicine, the other, well, she's the help." Soft laughter. Not cruel. Comfortable. Then Ava's voice cut straight through it. "Mom, are you the help?" Silence hit the table hard. Elaine leaned forward quickly. "Sweetheart, Grandpa's joking." Ava looked at me. "Is it bad?" Robert didn't answer her. He stared at me. "Sit down." I didn't. "No." I said to Ava, "It's not bad. And I'm not the help." Robert's tone sharpened. "Madeline." "You made a statement," I said evenly. "I'm correcting it," Elaine whispered. "Not tonight." It became tonight when my daughter asked if I'm something to be embarrassed about. I turned to the table. "I run Blue Ridge Estate Management. 16 full-time employees. 22 properties under contract. We manage security, vendors, and capital projects." Robert gave a short laugh. "It's cleaning. It's management. It's domestic labor. It's asset oversight." James leaned forward. "Madeline Cross." "Yes, you're the principal on my Loudown portfolio." "Yes," Robert stiffened. "James, this isn't relevant." James didn't look at him. "We've had weekly review calls for 3 years. A few guests shifted in their seats. Elaine forced a smile. "What a small world," James continued. Voice steady. "Robert, during due diligence you represented the cottage as unoccupied. It will be vacant at closing." Robert replied quickly. "That's not what I asked." James said, "Was it occupied when we executed the purchase agreement?" Robert hesitated. I reached into my bag and placed the notice to quit on the table. 90 days, I said. Delivered after contract execution. Elaine's face drained. "You brought legal documents to dinner. You brought my eviction to it first." Robert's voice rose. "This is family business." James's tone didn't change. "It's contractual business if occupancy wasn't disclosed. Vacant possession is a closing condition." Robert tried to recover. "I was handling it." "Were you handling the bridge loan as well?" James asked. The room tightened. Robert said nothing. For $400,000, I added quietly. James looked directly at him. Was that disclosed in the financial summary Robert's jaw set? Silence answered for him. James stood, calm and precise. I'm not terminating the transaction tonight, he said. But closing is paused pending review by counsel. That landed heavier than any dramatic exit could. You're overreacting, Robert snapped. I'm reassessing risk. James replied, There's a difference. Chairs shifted. Guests reached for coats. Conversations dropped to whispers. Ava squeezed my hand. Are we in trouble? No, I said. We're not. Robert looked at me like I'd pulled something from under him. You undermined me, he said. I stopped covering for you. He opened his mouth, then realized no one was rushing to defend him. For the first time, he wasn't directing the room. And for the first time, I wasn't shrinking to keep it standing. The house went quiet fast, like a party that realized it picked the wrong side. Coats gone, cars pulling out, the smell of wine and gravy still in the air. Robert closed the dining room door harder than necessary. You humiliated me, he said. I corrected you. In front of a client. In front of my daughter. Elaine stepped in. This didn't have to happen. It already did, I said. Robert paced once, then stopped. That bridge loan is time-sensitive. How time-sensitive 30 days. And without the sale, I'll manage. You told James the property was vacant. It will be. Not if I assert my rights. His eyes sharpened. You wouldn't. I already have counsel. Elaine inhaled sharply. You hired a lawyer? You served me papers. Robert lowered his voice. You're choosing business over blood. No, I said. I'm choosing honesty over performance. Natalie appeared in the doorway. She looked smaller somehow. Dad, she said quietly. You shouldn't have lied. Robert turned on her. You stay out of this. She's not wrong. Natalie said. You didn't disclose. You think you understand contracts, he snapped. I understand debt. She replied. $240,000 of it. He froze. What you refinanced the house to pay for med school, she said. I still owe the rest, Elaine whispered. Natalie! Robert looked between us like the script had been ripped up. So now everyone's against me, he muttered. No, I said. We're just not covering for you. Silence stretched. Finally, he said, You'll move out. I already signed a lease. I replied. That part surprised him more than the lawyer. Where Leesburg? Townhouse. It's mine. For how much enough? He stared at me like I'd broken some unspoken rule. Later. When I went back to the cottage, Natalie followed. You could have told me. She said, You could have asked. I didn't know how bad it was. I didn't either. Until tonight. She leaned against the door frame. He might lose the loan. He chose that risk. You're not sorry. I'm tired. She nodded slowly. I don't know who we are without his structure. I guess we find out. Inside, Ava was asleep on the couch, thumb hooked in her sleeve like she used to do as a toddler. I picked her up. You ever walk out of a house you grew up in and realize you're not the one leaving unstable ground? Moving day was quiet, just cardboard scraping the floor and the sharp smell of fresh paint. No speeches, no ceremony. Ava ran from room to room, touching the walls like she needed proof. Is this really ours? She asked. Yes, I said. It's ours, not borrowed, not conditional, not temporary. 2 days after Thanksgiving, James called. We're not terminating the deal, he said, but we're amending it. With disclosures. I replied, with full disclosures. He confirmed. Your father will need to restructure the bridge loan. Closing is extended 60 days. He won't like that. It's not about liking it. No, I said. It never is. There was a pause. I value clarity. He added, so do I. No applause. No grand gestures. Just terms adjusted. Natalie came by the next week. She stood in my kitchen, hands in her coat pockets. "He's furious," she said. "About the delay, about losing control." "That's different." She exhaled. "I told him you weren't wrong. And he said you embarrassed him. I didn't invent the facts." She looked around. "This place feels steady." "It is. I don't know how to live without his approval," she admitted. "I'm still learning," I said. A month later, Robert knocked. No call ahead. He stood on the porch longer than necessary before speaking. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said. "I expect conversation. That's a start." He stepped inside slowly. He didn't look around much, just at the table. "I structured my life around appearances," he said. "I thought protecting the image protected all of you. It didn't. I see that now." He sat, but not at the head. He didn't reach for a glass. He didn't direct anything. "The loan is being refinanced," he said, "at less favorable terms." "I'm sorry it's expensive," I replied, "but it's accurate." He nodded once. Accuracy matters. We didn't untangle the past. We didn't revisit childhood. We talked about practical things: school zoning, property taxes, neutral subjects that didn't cut too deep. When he left, Ava asked, "Is Grandpa different?" "He's thinking," I said, "and maybe that's enough for now." Here's what I've learned. Not as advice. Just as experienced silence can look like loyalty, but it isn't. It's maintenance. And maintenance costs you. If something in your life depends on you shrinking, it isn't stable. It's propped up. I don't know what my father and I will become. We're not fixed. We're not broken beyond repair either. For now, he visits. He sits. He listens more than he speaks. And I set the table in my own house.